Hello students, it's Sam Bennett, your guide to critical thinking, and this is another short video on a key concept. So in this video, I'll basically be giving you a procedure for looking at deductive arguments. In other words, I'll be telling you like what questions you should ask once you know that the argument you're looking at is deductive. All right. So first off, before you ask these questions, you should make sure it's deductive, right? So not every argument is deductive, some are inductive. And so before you launch on this procedure that I'm going to talk about, you should make sure the argument you're looking at is actually deductive. Now, how do you know it's deductive? I have other videos on that, but let me just review quickly, right? So every argument is going to draw a conclusion based on some information. Okay, so for example, here's an argument. John lives in Alaska, thus John lives in the USA. So the person is drawing a conclusion, John lives in the USA, based on other information, that John lives in Alaska. So that makes it an argument because they are drawing a conclusion based on other information. Now, why is it deductive? Well, this is the thing. The speaker seems to think that their conclusion is guaranteed by the previous information. In other words, it would be super weird if someone said, John lives in Alaska, so he probably lives in the USA. That would be super bizarre. And so what it seems like is going on here is that the speaker thinks the conclusion is guaranteed by the previous information. And so that's what makes it deductive. Because the speaker means to say that John definitely lives in the USA, given the fact that John lives in Alaska. All right, so yeah, so once you know an argument is deductive, then like what's the next thing you do? What's your next step? Well, basically you're going to ask yourself two questions, okay? So once you learn it's deductive, you ask yourself two questions, and let's get on to what those questions are, okay? Your first question is whether it's valid, okay? So you figure out it's deductive, and then you ask yourself, is the argument valid? All right, and then there's a second question you're going to ask, a separate one, that goes like this: is it sound? Okay, so first you ask yourself, is this deductive argument valid? And then secondly, you ask yourself if the deductive argument is sound. Yeah, in other words, you have two questions to ask yourself. Is the deductive argument valid? And is it sound? All right. Now, you might be thinking, well, what if it's inductive? What do I ask then? Well, we're not getting into that, really. All I can say is you do not ask whether it's valid or sound. That's the only time you ever ask whether it's valid or sound is when you're looking at a deductive argument, right? It's kind of like if you go up to a basketball player, you would never ask them, hey, have you ever won the Super Bowl? Like that's like not a relevant question, okay? So you're only going to ask if it's valid or sound if it's deductive. You're not going to ask that if it's inductive. Again, what do you do after you find out that the argument is deductive? What are you going to do? You're going to ask if it's valid. And then you're also going to ask after that whether it's sound. Now you're probably wondering, well, what does that mean to ask if it's valid? What does it mean to ask if it's sound? Okay, let me get into that. We're going to analyze what it means to ask this question. And then we'll also analyze what it means to ask this question, okay? All right, so yeah, how do you know if it's valid? Well, see the other videos I made, but here's the short version, okay? What you do is you divide the premises from the conclusion. You see this lady? She divided the tomatoes from the radishes, okay? So you are going to divide something. You're going to divide the premises. You're going to put them over here. You're going to put the conclusion over here. And what you're going to do is you're going to accept the premises. It's like you're going to eat the tomato, okay? You're going to accept the premises. And then you're going to ask yourself, is the conclusion guaranteed after accepting the premises? If the conclusion really is guaranteed once you accept the premises, then it's valid. All right, how about sound? Well, if it's invalid, then it's automatically unsound. If it's invalid, automatically unsound. However, if it's valid, well, we have to again divide the premises from the conclusion, right? Be like this person. Divide the oranges from the strawberries. Okay, so divide the premises from the conclusion. And then you're going to ask yourself this: are the premises actually true? Like, are these premises really true? If the premises are not actually true, then the argument is unsound. More on soundness. Let me just mention this, okay? Being sound is fantastic. It's wonderful. We love sound arguments. Wow, they're great. It's like a diamond. Like, oh, it's amazing. They're perfect. It's a great thing to be sound, okay? It's not, it, you know, a sound deductive argument is not only valid, it also has true premises. Amazing. Fantastic. It's a great thing to be sound. So remember, it's a good thing for something to be sound. All right, now I want to point something out. Think about what I told you about checking validity. We divided the premises from the conclusion first. Think about what I told you about soundness. We divided the premises from the conclusion. Okay, what does this mean? It means that if you're going to analyze a deductive argument, guess what? You need to be able to divide the premises from the conclusion. Wow, that is so important. To be able to divide the premises from the conclusion is super important. Or else you're never going to be able to analyze a deductive argument. All right, now we're going to do an example analysis, okay? So real quick. We have this argument: all medications approved by the FDA are considered safe for public use. Aspirin has been approved by the FDA, therefore aspirin is considered safe. So first off, why is this deductive? Well, it's because the person doesn't say that the conclusion is probably true. They don't say, therefore aspirin is probably considered safe for public use. So that's one sign that it's deductive. But even better is, like, if you think about the context, they say all medications approved by the FDA are considered safe. Aspirin has been approved. So they must think it's guaranteed that aspirin is considered safe for public use, right? Those premises, in the speaker's mind, the speaker has the impression that their conclusion is guaranteed by the previous information. All right, now the question is whether it's actually valid. And when we divide the premises from the conclusion, and when we accept the premises, we realize, yeah, the conclusion is guaranteed when we accept those premises. All right, why is it sound? Well, when I divide the premises from the conclusion, I divide the yellow from the blue, and I realize, look, those premises are actually true. For example, aspirin has been approved by the FDA. That's really true. So that's why it's sound, because not only is it valid, but the premises are also true. So therefore, it is sound. All right, that's it. Now, just remember, once you figure out that an argument is deductive, ask yourself, is it valid? And then ask yourself, is it sound?